It's been 6 years of podcasting, and without our sponsors, we wouldn't be able to bring these podcasts to you. So I want to thank today's sponsors. And first off, we have the Pretentious Pickle Company of 190 Water Street in Plymouth. If you haven't had a chance to get down there, go down and check out what they make. They have everything pickled you can imagine, from pickled beets to carrots to mushrooms to onions to Brussels sprouts and cauliflower. They even have pickled or pickled flavor cotton candy, I should say. They make it fresh there every day, and you can go in there and check out what they have to offer. And if you're not in the Plymouth area, you can go to pretentiouspickle.com and check out what they have to offer there as well, and they will ship it out to you. Their stuff is delicious. You should check it out, and they are big fans of ours, and we are big fans of theirs. So thank you to the Pretentious Pickle Company for sponsoring today's episode. And our second sponsor today is Moonrise Cinemas. Moonrise Cinemas is a new drive-in in Plymouth, right on the Plymouth-Kingston line. They are located at 428 Court Street in Plymouth, Mass. And they offer a great selection of movies. You can go. It's very family-friendly. I went and checked out the Goonies there. They've had Marvel movies, a wide variety of stuff. And they're really starting to expand. They have had the Rocky Horror Picture Show this coming year. They're doing music on Thursday nights. On Wednesdays are going to be 420 friendly events. So make sure you check out what they have to offer. MoonriseCinemas.com. It's a great venue. They have a beer garden. They have their own food. Their food's phenomenal. And they're bringing back their French toast, which I'm very excited about. So make sure you check out what they have to offer, MoonriseCinemas.com. And if you use code Inebri-art when purchasing tickets, you'll get 10% off. So make sure you go to MoonriseCinemas.com to get your tickets for movies, concerts, and more. And use code Inebri-art for 10% off on your purchase. And now let's jump right into the podcast. Welcome back, Inebri-ites. This is Andy of the Inebri-art podcast. As always, I'm recording actually live in the office for, it feels like ages since I've done this. And for you who don't know, we record at the Craft Beer Cellar on Main Street in Plymouth. You should always check out there if you like beer, wine, all that sort of thing. Today we are, like I said, recording live. We have with us Sydney Blake. Welcome to the show. Here promoting the Young Pilgrims, or Young Pilgrims the play?
It's actually called Young Pilgrims, and we put the play after it so people know that it's a play. So,
just give me a rundown. Like, what is it? Like, how did it come to be? And why Pilgrims? Are you a Plymouth native? I suppose that's...
Not at all. No. It came to be because I'm a writer. I used to write TV sitcoms. Mm-hmm. In Los Angeles, but now we're in New York, and now I'm a playwright. But this came about when I cleaned out my desk after about 20 years, something like that.
Yeah.
And I found an old family tree from a distant relative, and it was from my husband's family, and it went all the way back to the Mayflower.
Okay, sure.
And I thought that was so cool. I really did. I'm Italian, so it has nothing to do with me. But my husband and daughter are descendants of John Alden.
Okay.
And I had heard about John Alden, from the courtship of Miles Standish, and just from coming to Plymouth, and just from being an American. And I just thought it was wonderful. So we actually came to Plymouth. We joined the Alden Kindred, which is descendants from all over the country, and they call themselves cousins, which I thought was, cute. Anyway, and so since I'm a writer, I thought, wow, wouldn't it be interesting to find out how his ancestors actually got together? And they were on the Mayflower together, John Alden and Priscilla Mullins. But the more I researched it, the more interesting it got, because John Alden was an orphan, he was illiterate, and he was the cooper on the Mayflower.
Okay.
That
Cooper's
means
a barrel maker, right?
Yeah, he made barrels, and he took care of supplies, but he was, just a hired help there on the Mayflower. So he falls in love with this pretty young maiden named Priscilla, and he doesn't have a chance with her because her father is one of the wealthiest guys on the boat, and in fact, he was one of the investors of the whole voyage.
Okay.
And if somebody's going to be a love interest with his daughter, those days...
It's not going to be a lowly Cooper.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He has to come from a quote-unquote good family. And so John says, well, my family goes back to William the Conqueror. He conquered them. That's one of the lines.
Yeah.
It's that kind of play. It's a comedy, folks, but it's also historically correct. All the people actually existed, and everything that happens actually happened. So you can actually become a real know-it-all about the Pilgrims while having a good time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so cool living here, being so close to history.
Oh, yeah.
And, that's how we ended up with one of our other shows, the Old Colony Cast. Our listeners can go check that out. But was our kind of interest in history and the local scene, and even not that far back, but there's just so much around here, and there's still connections like your family, and there's many other people locally who can trace their roots right back to the Pilgrims.
Seems like everybody in Plymouth is a descendant.
Not I. I have no relation whatsoever.
All right, that makes two of us.
Actually, I remember I think it was junior high. I think it was very early on in junior high. I had to do a family tree, and my mother really got into it, and we traced our family all the way back to Ireland, where we found two cousins that married each other, and I'm like, I'm not bringing this to school. And she's like, it was normal back then. I'm like, I'm not bringing that to school. So, it's really fascinating, like family history and stuff like that.
It really is. And the amazing thing is how many children they had. John had 10 children. Mm-hmm. His children each had around 10 children. And if you keep doing that over and over...
you populate a whole country.
Oh, yeah. I think it's something like, I don't know how many millions of descendants there are in this country, but it's millions.
It's crazy. So how long did it take you to do the research to write the play? I feel like writing a play isn't an easy thing to do in the first place, but...
It was over a year.
Yeah.
I even went to the Library of Congress in D.C., and I found out so many things about the Pilgrims that I didn't know, and I believe that most people don't know. They were nothing like those, those icons that you see wearing black hats with buckles and stuff.
Yep.
They didn't wear black. Most of them didn't, because black dye was way too expensive.
Yeah.
The people who wore black and those buckles and all that stuff were the Puritans, who came over like 20 years after that.
Yeah.
But the actual first Pilgrims, they were all different colors. And that's just one thing. The other thing is that I didn't know that half of the Pilgrims on the ship died.
Yeah.
And, God, there's so many other things. And it's things that kids don't learn in school, and they really should, because, it's kind of the origin story of America.
Yeah, there's been a real big push locally to try and tell the story more accurately, like Plymouth Plantation now is Plymouth Patuxent.
Right.
To include all sides of the story, not the whitewashed.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know even if it's politically correct fantasy side of it. So
the romanticizing of it.
Sure, yeah. So at what point does your play take place? Does it take place on the journey over? Is it once they've gotten here?
It takes place on the Mayflower, about a couple of weeks or so after it's taken off, after it started its voyage. And it goes through the entire voyage until they finally reach land, which is 66 days. And then it's also what happens on the land.
Oh, excellent.
So it covers everything.
Yeah.
And you said something about, well, the hit, never mind. Go on.
I say lots of things. I don't listen to me. So it was a very difficult journey over here for them. It started off with 2 ships and, got knocked down to 1. So it was overcrowded. Do you address the hardships, or is it more just a lighthearted, love story? Because you said it's a comedy.
Right. It's a romantic comedy, a 1620 romantic comedy. No, we include everything. Yeah. The people, dying and so on. But it's all done not in a light way, but in a human way. Mm-hmm. I mean, even the jokes are just, natural things that make sense. And some of them, are a little absurd, but mostly they make sense. If, for instance, the play begins with John Alden and his friend Gilbert Winslow, and they're playing with dice and stuff on the deck, and they're actually talking about the women on the ship, and they're rating them from 1 to 10. Okay. So what I'm trying to do is make it so that it's understandable to audiences right now, because what I found out and knew anyway was that the Pilgrims were not icons; they were people, and especially the young Pilgrims, which you don't hear that much about. Young meaning 21, 20, 18, 17. They had the same feelings as young people do today.
Oh, of course, yeah.
And if you look at them that way, then they're not so rigid and stuff. And they weren't Puritans. They were something called separatists. And so we explain all that, but in a, different, unconventional way.
Yeah. It's interesting. So you said it took you a year to write the play.
Well, to research it.
To research. How long did it take to write it?
The first time was just about a month, which was fast, but it was because I had the option, the opportunity to have the play in an off-Broadway theater festival. So I did it really fast. And actually, the theater festival was wonderful. We got a great review from the New York Times.
Oh, excellent.
Which you can see on our website, which is Young Pilgrims the Play .com. I'm just awful.
Oh, that's
okay.
That's normal. So it started in New York. And it was here last summer, right? Did you bring it to Plymouth?
No, we were going to bring it. It played in New York in 2019, just before COVID.
Okay.
And we were going to bring it to Plymouth the following year, but COVID messed it all up, for the 400th anniversary. Yep. So we're doing it now that COVID is on the wane.
Sure. I think for now, maybe today.
More or less.
Yeah.
At least it's much better than it was 2 years
absolutely.
ago. So we figured let's do it now. And we tried to find a theater in Plymouth, but there were no theaters available. So we found this beautiful theater in Duxbury, which is only 13 minutes from downtown Plymouth.
Oh, sure. It's not far.
So all the tourists can know that.
Yeah.
It's in a very old historic church called the First Parish Church of Duxbury. And that's because it literally was the first parish. They called them meeting houses then. And this was when John Alden and Miles Standish and some of the other Pilgrims around 1630-something moved from Plymouth to Duxbury to get more land. And they stayed there. They were there. There's even an historic Alden House in Duxbury.
Yeah.
It's a museum. It's wonderful. Anyway, so this church has a lot of good history about the Pilgrims, and we're doing it inside this huge hall with a great stage, and we're doing it beginning July 1st, all the way until August 13th. That's 7 weeks. And it's going to be Thursday, Friday, and Saturday evenings at 7:30 p.m.
Oh, wow. 3 times a week for 7 weeks?
Yeah.
Wow, that's a lot. That's great.
Yeah, well, it does depend on people coming to
Sure,
it, actually.
of course, yeah. So
everybody's coming to opening night.
did you...
So for one day, yes.
Is this like local talent or the talent from around the country? Like
No, it's local in that a lot of the kids are from Boston,
Mhm.
Boston area, but there's also someone from Kingston, someone from Marshfield. I think that's how they say it. Yeah.
Marshfield.
Thank you.
Marsh Vegas, really, is what we call it. But
Really?
oh, yeah.
Why?
I don't know. It's just people call it Marsh Vegas.
Oh, okay. Not
we
bad.
have weird terms around here.
Oh yes. And one is from New Hampshire.
Mhm.
He has to drive quite a bit. He's wonderful. And where else? Towns like Newton,
Sure.
Bristol, something like that. And actually one is from New York because we couldn't find an actor to play this part here. So we're bringing him in from New York.
Which part?
It's the part of the Native American Squanto.
Oh, okay.
I just couldn't find a Native American actor nearby. I mean, seriously, I know there are tribes, but in terms of actors, I couldn't find one.
Right.
So we're using the actor who did it in New York, who is part Native American.
Mhm.
His name is Michael Bluejacket, and he got a great review from the New York Times.
Yeah, and that's especially nowadays. You want to be culturally sensitive. I don't know why I
sure.
can't say that, and
Absolutely.
not cast the wrong type of person in that kind of role.
Yeah.
How much of a role are the natives in the Young Pilgrims? Is it just Squanto?
Actually, yeah, there's only the one young man named
Mhm.
Squanto who could speak English. And so the tribe the group of friends with John Alden, etc., they finally meet a Native American, and it turns out to be Squanto, and he can speak English, and they're flabbergasted.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a nice long conversation about everything.
Oh, that's great. When you were writing this, did it ever cross your mind that you would be having the play in a building where the Pilgrims were? Like, I mean, that seems like very full circle in the whole grand scheme.
Yeah,
of
actually, no. I thought it would be, a regular theater. But it is pretty cool. I mean, the building is big and white. It's huge. It's beautiful. And it wasn't that way when it was first built.
Sure, yeah.
But it's right there, and it's right next to the Mayflower Cemetery,
Mm-hmm.
which is really big and has a lot of interesting people in it. Or under it, or,
Yeah.
what I mean.
Quote-unquote residents.
Yes, thank you.
So you said you have written for TV sitcoms. Was One Major Dad? Am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah.
I remember I was kind of like poking around on IMDb, but how is it? How does a play writing different from TV sitcom?
It's a lot easier.
Oh, really?
I think, because I can tell you all about sitcoms and sitcom writers. Writing a sitcom is really hard because you have 1 week to work on the show while you're working on the following week's show. So you're working on 2 shows at the same time, and you're in this fairly small group of people.
Mm-hmm.
It could be 6 people, it could be 10 people. And I mean, everyone sort of goes off in the beginning of before the season starts.
Yep.
And each writer writes a particular script. but they don't write it by themselves. Each story goes through what they call breaking the story. So everybody in the group of writers, the staff, they all contribute ideas and even lines and jokes and stuff to this story. Mm-hmm. And then each writer goes off with their story for 2 weeks and or some shows are 1 week, and writes their episode. But then when you bring it back, the entire group goes through your script, and the script that's going to be the first, second, third, so on episode are chosen. But when they're going to do your script, you have to sit there while everybody reads it together. And
there's like a table read, like out loud, or
yeah. Each writer sort of takes a part, and you read it out loud. And when you're finished reading, and you realize that not many of the writers laughed at your jokes, you want to, like kill yourself. But instead of that, you sit there humiliated, and everybody all the other writers come up with jokes or lines, or you can make this better, make that better, make that better. No matter how good the script is, mm-hmm. it's their job to make it better.
Right, of course, yeah.
So, but that isn't necessarily necessary sometimes, mm-hmm. I think. But you still have to go through the whole process. And like I said, one script is being rehearsed by the actors for that week, mm-hmm. the end of that week. Meanwhile, you're doing this process for the following week with another writer's script. So you're working on 2 scripts at the same time. And every day you get to see a scene or 2 of what they have rehearsed later in the afternoon, let's say. Mm-hmm. And then after that, you go back and you make more changes, because once you hear it and see it, it's like, oh, wait, that didn't work that well, or this or that. And the head writer basically tells you what needs to be changed again.
Yeah.
And then you go through the same thing the next day, and about 5 days of this. And then finally, you do usually 2 tapings mm-hmm. or filming, but twice with 2 audiences, so that they can get the best from each
go through.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And they really do hold up signs. Not hold them up, but there are signs that say applause, or laughter or whatever. So it's all so crazy.
I can imagine it must be difficult where if like you wrote your script and then they're going in the room, around the room, even though like the process, and they're making changes or tweaking, or like punching up a joke here, punching up a joke there. Like, how did you have any real control? Could you kind of like put your foot down and be like, no, that has to stay? Like,
no, no control. The head writer has all the control. He can write his own script actually and not have anybody change anything.
Oh, okay.
So that's a great job. They hate it, but it's a great job.
Yeah.
Because it's a tough job. And in case people want to go into show business, I thought I'd mention that actually TV writing is very lucrative, mm-hmm. especially sitcoms. It pays more than being an actor. Pays more than being a screenwriter. It's just a very lucrative business. But it's very difficult. So, they should be paid well, I think.
Is it one of those things where, like, if it gets picked up in syndication, do you continue to get paid for that?
You get residuals. Sure. Absolutely. I'm still getting residuals from, like, 1995 or so.
Don't make it sound like it was so long ago. I hate to see that. It wasn't that long ago.
These residuals are like, $50. They're not that much, but in the beginning they are, because it's repeated and mm-hmm. and then taken up, like you said, in syndication on other networks.
Some of them, like, Friends and Seinfeld and Cheer,
forget
like
it.
Those people
have
to be doing pretty okay.
Gazillionaires. Yeah.
How did you get into TV writing specifically?
Well, I started off as an actress,
mm-hmm.
and I worked in New York City on Broadway and off Broadway and commercials and stuff, and then and around the country. And then I turned 30, and they started putting me up for aging hookers.
Okay.
that kind of thing. And I didn't
Yeah.
even get the part. So I figured,
I don't know if that's a
okay.
compliment or, yeah.
So I was like past due the age that my silly characters were. So I went to Los Angeles, and I really wanted to write sitcoms because everything I'd done was comedy. And I stupidly wrote like 9 sitcoms on my own,
Mm-hmm.
and tried to get them to, say, an actor that I might know or somebody might know on one of the shows
Yep.
to give to the writers, but that never works. It didn't work at all. I finally got a partner, and he knew the publicist for one of the shows, Mama's Family.
I love that show. I used to watch it all the time.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, then you'll see 4 episodes that I wrote. Anyway, so basically, I mean, it's really hard. You either have to have an agent, which is very hard to get, a good agent, or like we didn't have an agent. We knew somebody who actually could give our what they call spec script,
Mm-hmm.
an example of a sitcom,
Sure.
to the head writer. And so that's how we started. We got what they call a pitch meeting,
Mm-hmm.
which means you go and sit in front of the whole staff, and you rattle off about, I don't know, several ideas for stories for shows, and if they like any of them, they'll pick one, and they'll say, okay, you've got a script, so go write your script
Go write
and
your
bring
script
it back.
and we'll pick it apart later.
Exactly. That's exactly what happens. Yeah. So those are called freelance scripts.
Mm-hmm.
That's when, the staff is already composed. It's already working. But if you can get an agent from something you've had
Yep.
produced, then from that we got an audition, I guess you might say, an interview for Empty Nest, which was hadn't started yet for their season. So
I remember the name. I'm trying to think of who
Oh, I'm
was
sorry.
in it.
Richard Mulligan. It was a takeoff from the Golden Girls.
Oh, right. He had the dog, right?
Yeah, the
Yeah,
dog.
yeah,
the
yeah.
dog
Okay, yep,
and the
I remember that.
pediatrician. And
Yep.
This is all before you were born.
No,
so.
it wasn't. I told you I used to watch Mama's Family, and I used to watch. My mom used to watch Empty Nest, and
Anyway, so there we were trying out to be on the staff, and they liked us, so we were on that staff, and that's how I know about the whole process.
yeah.
Because we were brand new, and it was mind-boggling.
I have always thought that it's far more difficult to write comedy than serious. Do you find that to be true too?
Yes. Yeah, especially with something like TV writing, where, you're in that room and you have to come up with a joke right away. I mean, you don't have time, like, think about it that night or something.
Mm-hmm.
You have to come up with a joke within seconds or minutes at the most. And that's really hard. That's why a lot of stand-up comics are good at it, because they improvise a lot.
Yeah, because they can be
Yeah.
quick and they deal with
Yeah.
hecklers and that
But
sort of thing.
but in that sense, yeah, it's a lot harder than writing drama.
Yeah, I've way back in the day, I used to own a comic book shop, and everyone was trying to write their own comic, and everybody was doing like a funny comic book,
Yeah.
and it was always like, these aren't funny. Like, they're funny to you and your friends, but they're not funny. Like if you don't have your friend context, it's just, it's a story of like 4 guys who work at a Big Lots, and it doesn't make any sense. That, and I always told people, I'm like, write something serious. I think you'll have an easier time. And
Yeah.
it's just, I feel like people have this idea that it's easier to be funny than it is to be serious.
Everybody thinks they can act, and everybody thinks they can write, until you actually try out for this stuff. And then it's not that easy.
So in COVID,
Yes.
I'm a creative person. I got incredibly bored, so I came up with new projects for myself. I started writing a script. I'm finding it very, very hard to write for a female character.
Sorry, that's not funny.
I mean, it's fine. Do you have any tips or hints for writing for someone that you may not have the same perspective that they have?
Sure, just ask a woman.
I've sent it to some people, and some people like it's fine. Other people like I don't like her, and I'm like, oh, you're supposed to like her. So it's very tough. But I suppose that's
Then show it to a lot of your friends. The more input you get, the better.
okay. All right.
I'm a woman. I could read it.
Oh, okay. I can send it. So is it? How much of writing is kind of that, giving it to other people and getting that feedback and any creative process is difficult to take feedback, but
no, it's really important to have like good. Not every. I mean, you have to be careful whom you give it to.
yeah.
But if you trust them and they're good friends and they're not going to say it's awful just because they're jealous or something.
It's weird. I almost dislike people who say it's good because they're your friend. Like I'd rather you be completely honest.
Yeah,
I'd rather you be like, I don't like it.
Yeah. Well, you kind of find somebody like a good friend who is honest.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a couple of those who are very honest. And I hate them, but
yeah,
no, but they're very good critics.
Yeah,
I have, and you don't have to take the suggestion. You don't have to, but it's good to hear it.
Sure, yeah, and you have to be honest with yourself and not so like, no, it's right.
Right,
if you can really take it in. I have a friend Adam that I'll send some artwork to, and be like, hey, be honest, and he'll send back an email or a text or whatever, and I'll be like, thank you for your honesty. I'm gonna go cry. Because he's just brutally honest, and he's right. But it's just like, oh, you could have softened it a little bit.
Oh God, it's awful. Yeah.
So who did you have reading Young Pilgrims the play to kind of like?
Well, actually, God, I'd forgotten this. I actually had a reading of the play before the festival. That was with invited friends.
Yeah.
And we had actors just sitting around on a stage and reading from the script. And one of these good friends that, who always would read my stuff, she did not give it a good review. But the other people did.
Yeah.
And, and they liked certain lines that I was very proud of, like when one of the girl pilgrims says to another one, Priscilla, this isn't the 1500s. Of course I've kissed a boy. Things like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, but my friend said, well, it doesn't build, the story doesn't go to a climax, and then, it's just kind of, it doesn't build well enough. And I thought, oh, shut up. So I made it build a little more. But I did it the way I wanted it to be, and ultimately, you have to do what you want to do.
Right. Yeah.
And it worked.
Yeah. To me, like some of the best things I've ever done have been like collaborative. I love working with other people in that kind of process, because I feel like even when that person comes back to you with any kind of input, it kind of, I find it frequently gives me like another spark, being like, oh, wait, but what else we could do? Or like, oh, I can build on what your tag, and kind of like take your input and build upon that. And I feel like it just makes you better.
Yeah, it's good to have a partner, especially with sitcoms, for instance, or any kind of TV writing, because you have to do it so fast.
Yeah.
So I had a partner.
Yeah, a
actually.
week sounds crazy. Like I can't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where did you come up with story ideas in that?
Oh God, out of your head.
Or do you ever like? Because I feel like sitcoms are a lot frequently about like something weird that happens in someone's day. Do you have like a notebook or something where like when weird thing happens, you kind of like jot down like, oh, that could be a story? Or
not really, to be honest. We would do things like look up the plots of old movies.
What was it? I heard that. Oh my God, I can't believe I'm blanking on his name.
I do that all the time.
Gary Marshall.
Oh, him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I met him, yes.
Oh, yeah?
Sure.
Nice. I heard when he used to
in
write...
a bar, but never mind.
Hey. I heard when he used to write... What was it? When he wrote... Yeah, he wrote on I Love Lucy, and he would start with the end scene and work backwards. But
Really?
if he worked with the Dick Van Dyke Show, it was the other way around. Like he would start with something funny in the beginning and work that way. But like with
Jeez.
Lucy, it was like, oh, let's have her stuffing her face full of chocolates on a conveyor belt, and then work. How did she get there?
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, usually when you come up with an idea, like on a staff, for instance, I had the idea that the main character was dating, he was a pediatrician on Empty Nest. So my idea was that he was dating a woman who was a surgeon. So she was, sort of another caste above him.
Yeah.
And the idea was that he felt, strange about dating someone who was more successful than him. And so they wound up doing that show. But the end, then they came up with the end later, which was that she dumps him, actually, which the actor didn't really like.
Yeah. Do you have to like frequently deal with that kind of like actor ego as far as like when you write their characters, like, oh, my character wouldn't say that, or like...
Well, they usually do that with the director. There's also a director of the show who works with the actors, and I guess he's kind of a go-between between the actors and the writers.
Yeah.
And yeah, sometimes the actors get really angry. There was one line where one of the writers wrote something really sort of nasty about the character, and she got really upset. So that happens.
Yeah. So what's next after Young Pilgrims? Do you have another play you're working on? Or?
Actually, I'm hoping that this play will go around the country because it's great for Thanksgiving and the whole fall season. And we'd love to have it running in Plymouth forever for all the tourists.
Yeah.
Because it's something different. It's all about the Pilgrims, but it's nothing like anything else in Plymouth. Because it's a comedy. And you don't think of the Pilgrims in terms of comedy.
Oh, no, not at all.
Exactly.
No, very much the opposite.
So we thought, being unique, this would be the best place for it, frankly. But I think it could also go around the country, so that's what I'm going to be working on.
Oh, excellent. So if you can give us, again, where people can go to find out about the play. I have it right here, but people,
that's
people
okay.
like it from the guests better, I think.
In fact, I have something even more than that.
Oh, okay.
Please go to our website, which is youngpilgrimstheplay.com. That's youngpilgrimstheplay.com. And when you get to the buy tickets area, I'm going to give you a code where you can get $20 tickets, which are less than the regular price. And that code is the word Mayflower, capital Mayflower. Mayflower is the code for $20 tickets.
Nice. And so the dates are July 1st through August 13th.
Yes.
What time of the day does this run?
7:30 p.m.
7:30 is doors or curtain?
Curtain.
Curtain. Okay. So yeah, that's cool. I think
we actually have a curtain.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, I assumed.
Not all theaters do
I
now.
suppose that's true. I don't know. I just made the assumption there was one.
Yeah, it's real.
So before we go, what are you doing here in Plymouth other than the play? Are you taking in the sites?
Nothing. Are you kidding?
You're not taking in any of the sites?
I'm also the producer of the play.
Yeah.
And if you
so
think writing's hard...
You don't have a lot of free time?
I don't have any free time. We have to publicize it. I just got a lighting designer. We just finished the costumes. I have to pay the actors. I have to pay the understudies. I have to, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and so on and so forth.
Jeez.
It's a lot of work.
Well, I guess you got your day scheduled to the nines, which I do all the time. But thank you for squeezing us in and taking time to come talk to us.
Gosh, thank you for squeezing me in.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, and So our listeners, if you're in the Plymouth area, please make sure you check out the Young Pilgrims. I want to say the Young Pilgrims.
No, it's just Young Pilgrims.
It's like the Eagles and
Young Guns or something.
Yeah. So make sure you check out that play, and we'll catch you guys again next week.
Thank you.
And thanks for checking out the show today, listeners. If you enjoyed the content today, you can go over to patreon.com/Inebri-art to support the show. You can join over there for just a few dollars a month and help us provide this fun content that you just checked out. You can also email us at Inebri-art.com with your questions, complaints, and concerns, or you can find us on all social medias at Inebri-art or at Inebri-art6 on Instagram. And also don't forget to check out our other shows, Bar Talk Podcast, Old Colony Cast, Inebri-art, and all the other shows on the Inebri-art Network, which you can find at Inebri-art.com. So thanks again for listening.